The headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador. I am Estefania Bravo. This is from the south. U.S. President Donald Trump is set to declare a national emergency at the southern border with Mexico to fund his wall. Trump is expected to sign Congress's budget to avoid another government shutdown by declaring a national emergency. He will bypass Congress to build his wall, his long-promised wall. For her part, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has threatened filing a legal challenge if Trump goes through with his plan. This news comes after Democrats in Congress agreed to a deal with President Donald Trump over the wall. The deal is an attempt to avoid a government shutdown before Friday's deadline. Democrats agreed to give Trump $1.37 billion to build 55 miles of barriers. Migrant rights groups say that in supporting the deal, Democrats are simply reinforcing Trump's policies. More violent clashes have been reported between protesters and the police in Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince. At least 7 people have died since the wave of protests began last Thursday, demanding the resignation of President Jovenel Moïse. Protesters accuse the president of breaking his promises and increasing poverty in the country. Our correspondent in Port-au-Prince, Pablo Perez, has more.
Well, it's been 7 days of protests here in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and well, this is the place known as Delmar, the neighborhood Delmar. Just behind me there was a barricade yesterday sustained by people that is, of these neighborhoods that is, well, it's angry at the government because of the rise of the prices in general, and particularly about the price of the fuel that has registered an increment of over 50% on the price. And right now we can see how this gas station is closed, as well as, well, for many days supermarkets, convenience stores and other kinds of business were closed too, for fear of the rioters or protests that were being taken on the street against the government of Jovenel Moïse, that, well, has not issued a statement yet about, well, either this inflation process or the death toll of these so-called popular manifestations. Well, this is the 7th day of protest, and now things seem to have calmed down a little. We can see that people the small businesses are open to the trade, to the public, and we know that there is also water supply and gas, butane gas for cooking, something that is very relevant for the people.
Thank you, Pablo, for your report. The Venezuelan foreign minister held a press conference at the United Nations where he condemned the U.S. government for waging an economic blockade against Venezuela while also pretending to provide aid.
The cost of this blockade is over $30 billion, and they are sending this so-called humanitarian aid for $20 million. So what is this? I'm choking you, I'm killing you, and then I'm giving you a cookie? So that's a show, and they have said it openly. They have said it's in order to prove the loyalty of the military in Venezuela. The loyalty of our armed forces has already been proved. The momentum of the coup that the government of the United States was promoting is over. It didn't happen. You have to rethink your strategy, because Venezuela is a sovereign country.
The foreign minister also read a joint declaration made with a group of nations that are asking for a peaceful solution in the country.
We share the same interests, and we will work to defend the following principles. 1. Respect for the principle of rights and self-determination of the peoples. Point 42 of the UN Charter. Second, the sovereignty of each state. Number 3, to promote peaceful solutions to international conflicts so as never to put in danger peace and security. Number 4, to abstain from the use of force against any member state. Article 4.2 of the UN Charter. 5. Respect for the territorial integrity and political independence of all member states. And non-interference in the domestic affairs of member states. Point 7 of the UN Charter. We think that these principles are being threatened and the peace of our states is being put in danger, and we all have the right to live without the threat of the use of force or the imposition of unilateral coercive measures. In the coming days, we will take actions to increase general awareness of these principles and the situation of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. We call on the United States government to join this defense of international principles for peaceful coexistence among humanity.
The Russian envoy to the United Nations has supported the Venezuelan foreign minister, saying that the U.S. shows a hypocritical behavior when sending humanitarian aid to Venezuela.
The Venezuelan Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jorge Arriaza, said something truthful today. He said that the U.S. is using the $20 million in humanitarian aid as a political card of some sorts, which, by the way, may lead to provocations and mayhem. At the same time, $30 billion of Venezuelan property was blocked by the U.S. and British authorities in numerous jurisdictions. It shows the hypocrisy of this concern over the suffering of the Venezuelan people.
Venezuela's Prosecutor General Tarek William Saab has said his office has opened an investigation into the people who have been illegally named heads of oil company Citgo, as well as those named as foreign ambassadors by the opposition lawmaker Juan Guaido.
We have opened an investigation into the citizens who were illegally and unconstitutionally named chief executives of PDVSA and Citgo, and also against some citizens named as ambassadors in an illegal and unconstitutional move by someone who is an usurper of power.
Meanwhile, Cuba's government has denounced U.S. deployments of special forces in parts of the Caribbean without consent. Cuba's Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez says it's part of the preparation for a potential military intervention in Venezuela. The island is calling on the international community to join forces and stop any kind of interference. 8 progressive political parties from 5 Latin American countries have rejected the U.S. attempts at intervention in Venezuela. In a shared statement, progressive parties from Chile, Ecuador, Peru, Brazil, and Colombia called for dialogue and asked for peace in the region. They also criticized the Lima Group, saying it ignores the people's right for self-determination. We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Colombian government continues to evade its commitment to the peace agreements made with the FARC back in 2016. For example, President Iván Duque is yet to sign a law that would allow the agreements to be ratified. Let's find out more.
The Congress Peace Commission has asked President Iván Duque to stop postponing signing a statutory law for the Special Jurisdiction for Peace that would allow the peace agreements to be implemented by law.
Duque's government has failed at showing any sign of commitment with peace in Colombia, and yet he goes abroad and preaches about peace. But we have discovered he is not likely to sign the statutory law. It's preparing to object to it, but they haven't said anything yet. This law was approved last year here in Congress and was then also approved by the Constitutional Court, but Mr. Duque is unwilling to sign it.
Senator Roy Barreras thinks that everyone who has advised the president to not sign the law is in the wrong. However, the Special Jurisdiction for Peace continues its work.
The president cannot object to decisions made by the Constitutional Court. That would be catastrophic. If this law were to be objected by the president, it would actually hurt the special jurisdiction for peace. It would remain in limbo and would then need to find a way to fulfill the tasks that the statutory law would have done.
As the government and allies continue attacking the special jurisdiction for peace week after week, international observers all agree that the solution to bring an end to the armed conflict is by implementing the peace agreements.
What's fundamental is to focus on peace and on transitional justice. The special jurisdiction for peace is key in order to help Colombia attain sustainable peace.
For analysts and some politicians, the government is using everything at its disposal to hamper the peace agreement. Duque's refusal to sign the statutory law is just the latest. Despite these internal problems, Duque continues to focus all of his efforts on attacking the Venezuelan government of President Nicolás Maduro.
Heavy rainfall has continued to cause damage in parts of Peru and Bolivia. In Peru, at least 10 people were killed and thousands were affected by mudslides and floodings. While in Bolivia, according to local media, 20 people died and 12 are missing after heavy rains swept through. Authorities of both countries called for a national emergency. The bad weather is expected to continue over the next few days. One of the most wanted drug traffickers in the world has been arrested in Bolivia. A joint operation between Argentinian and local intelligence agencies led to the arrest of José Miguel Farfán. He entered Bolivia 4 years ago under a false identity. He's also accused of homicide and bribery.
The case is so significant that this person is among the 6 most wanted in Argentina, and a reward of 500,000 Argentine pesos was being offered to anyone who knew of the whereabouts of Mr. Farfán, given his status as a dangerous man.
The UN Commission Against Impunity has resumed its operation in Guatemala. This comes after President Jimmy Morales ousted the Anti-Corruption Commission in January. Staff acknowledges it was a risky decision because there's a lack of protection due to the government's decision. But the commission will now resume monitoring judicial proceedings. Groups representing victims of the El Mozote massacre say more exhumations are expected to happen soon as experts continue to investigate its impact nearly 4 decades later. More on that in this report.
The human rights organizations representing the victims of the El Mozote massacre have announced that new exhumations are expected to take place. The experts also say that the investigators in charge of the case will be responsible for researching how the massacre impacted the social and economic organization of the community.
This massacre has been investigated for several years, since the 90s. During this time, more than 350 bodies have been found. Most of them have been identified. The new exhumations will be carried out in an area where a family of 7 was buried, 5 of them minors. This shows how the massacre was systematic and coordinated by the military to target civilians. Forensic experts have found these attacks targeted mainly minors.
One representative from the organization representing the victims of El Mozote explained how the investigators were chosen and spoke about life in the area of El Mozote.
Both the defendants and the accused in this process presented their choice of investigators. Some were accepted, some were not. Most of the experts presented by the accused were not accepted because they could protect their interests. The ones that were presented were almost all accepted. Among them are 2 anthropology experts who are experts on the life of the El Mozote community at the time of the massacre.
On January 29th, 2 campesinos found bones while working the land. These human remains are thought to belong to Maria de la Paz Pereira, who was executed by the Salvadorian military, along her husband and 5 children. The massacre was carried out on December 10, 1981, during a military action known as Operation Rescue. and it was supported by several military units. Several witnesses have said that during the attack on El Mozote, every member of the community was arrested, including children.
Jamaica is on the path to economic independence, with recovery exceeding budget targets. Governor General Sir Patrick Allen delivered the news during his traditional throne speech at the ceremonial opening of Parliament.
Jamaica is on a path to economic independence. In that regard, international partners have commended Jamaica's performance. The agency also upgraded the country's policies and programs that enable a stable macroeconomic environment. Cabinet also approved the establishment of an independent fiscal council for Jamaica.
Jamaica's Governor General also says the island will play its role in ensuring that Brexit negotiations are successfully concluded, so as to maintain the country's strong partnership with the EU.
Even as the United Kingdom prepares to exit the European Union in the coming weeks, the government has been ardently engaged with the rest of CARIFORUM in working towards the conclusion of an economic partnership agreement with the UK that mirrors the acquis of the current agreement with the EU, preserving preferential terms for trade in goods and in services.
The police service in Trinidad and Tobago has been put on red alert following a series of murders and gang-related activities. Officers have already begun carrying out raids in crime hotspots across the country. Police Commissioner Gary Griffith says he raised law enforcement's response to the highest level in a bid to return law and order.
Now move from amber to red. This must not be seen in any way for the public to be fearful. What we are doing is stepping up what is required to ensure that you are safe and secure. So there's a concept of operations that is nationwide, and whilst that alert state remains, we believe that there may be a perceived threat, and the perceived threat has nothing to do with, the only thing it has to do is based on one or two specific individuals. I refer to them as punks, thieves, parasites, cockroaches, have continued to try to destabilize our country and to prevent our citizens from having a safe and secure society. We will continue at this level until we peg them back and let them know exactly that no gang in any part of this country, no turf, no street, no community belongs to them, that gives them the authority that they could put hits on persons.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. UK Prime Minister Theresa May has suffered a fresh defeat in a parliamentary vote on her Brexit strategy. The motion asked lawmakers to reaffirm support for May's plan to seek changes in the deal. But May lost by 303 to 258 on the largely symbolic vote. She was not at the debate where hardline Brexit supporters in her Conservative Party abstained. The defeat will make it harder for May to argue to the EU that she has a Commons majority behind her Brexit strategy.
Tonight's vote shows there is no majority for the Prime Minister's course of action in dealing with Brexit. Yet again, her government has been defeated. The government cannot keep on ignoring Parliament or ploughing on towards the 29th of March without a coherent plan.
Australia has decided to revive a controversial detention centre for asylum seekers on Christmas Island. Prime Minister Scott Morrison announced the decision shortly after Parliament passed a bill that allows migrants held offshore to receive medical care in the mainland. Morrison said this law would weaken the country's tough border policies. Since 2013, migrants arriving in Australia have been sent to detention centres in other locations. Critics have described the country's detention policies as inhumane. The lead defendant in the trial of 12 Catalan independence leaders has refused to answer questions in court, calling himself a political prisoner.
In order for the interrogation to proceed as smoothly as possible, I will not renounce my democratic convictions, and I understand that the prosecution will not stop prosecuting me for them. So I think I am unable to defend myself in the sense that I'm convinced that I'm accused for my ideas and not for the facts that are alleged against me, and therefore that I'm in a political trial. And therefore, as an elected representative and in relation to what I owe my constituents, I will not answer the prosecution's questions.
Former Regional Vice President Oriol Junqueras faces 25 years behind bars if convicted of rebellion for pushing an independence referendum in October 2017. The referendum was brutally suppressed by the Spanish police. It was followed by a declaration of independence, which sparked Spain's worst political crisis in decades. The trial is expected to last 3 months. Now it's time to bring you more stories from around the world.
Russia's miracle baby, Ivan Fokin, has been discharged from hospital after 6 weeks of treatment. 1-year-old Ivan came to the world's attention when he was rescued from under the rubble of a collapsed residential building in freezing temperatures on the 1st of January. The family have been given a new apartment by the government where Ivan will celebrate his first birthday on Saturday.
Vanya was treated by the whole country. It was a teamwork of rescuers, clinic staff, consultant physicians, and everyone else. But only Vanya, this human, is the biggest hero. It's such a joy to see him in this condition.
12-year-old Fatima Koba is displaced by the war in Yemen. She was living under a tree and weighed only 10 kg when she was brought into a malnutrition clinic. Fatima has highlighted the plight of millions who are on the brink of famine, according to the United Nations. Dr. Makia Al-Aslami, who is treating her, says she's expecting more malnourished people to come through her door. This month alone, she's treating 40 pregnant malnourished women. Fatima says her family were forced to flee when the Saudi-led bombardment started in 2015. A British teenager who travelled to Syria to marry an Islamic State militant now says she wants to return to the UK. Pregnant Shamima Begum told the Times newspaper how she became the bride of a Dutch IS fighter 10 days after her arrival in Raqqa, the capital of the self-proclaimed caliphate. Begum says she fled Syria 2 weeks ago to keep her unborn child safe after losing 2 children to illness.
After almost 15 years of exploring the red plains of Mars, NASA's Opportunity rover has been declared dead. The golf cart-sized rover was designed to last only 3 months, but it defied every expectation and lasted for 15 years, driving a total of more than 45 kilometers. OPI gave scientists incredible, rich data about Mars, but it felt silent last summer when a sandstorm coated its solar panels, cutting off its energy source. And before we end the show, don't forget to tune in on Telesur this Sunday for the 2nd episode of our new documentary series, After War. The series recounts the impact that the U.S. interventions have had in at least 12 countries across the world.
Están siendo sacrificadas por un dictador corrupto que ha arrastrado este país a una guerra civil. Los Estados Unidos no tienen nada en contra de ustedes, o peores.
Y cuando salimos afuera, la escena era dantesca. Un infierno. Habían cadáveres. La llama de los caserones de madera.
And with that, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Stefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.